Another thing that is very critical in a lot of these cases, Les, is surveillance footage, the actual video.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of he said, she said in these cases, and if you've got, we always say a picture's worth 1,000 words. I mean, a video's worth even more.
Right.
I mean, if you have it, then it kind of usually, I mean, there's times where it's a slippery substance. You may not be able to see that from the video, but you do get indicators of, have people been crossing this? What potentially caused the foreign substance? Where's the defect? And just, Les, if you would just kind of talk about the timing of that and how critical that
absolutely.
can be.
Yeah, so you know, we live in a surveillance society. There are cameras everywhere. There's cameras in public places, there's cameras in the grocery store, there's cameras in shopping malls. I mean, they're everywhere. Most of those camera systems are hooked up to usually a small server that has a limited amount of storage space. And these cameras run 24/7. And so once the space gets filled up, the camera footage starts to record over older footage, and it's called being on a loop. Sometimes that loop is a few days, sometimes it's 7 days. I think the most we've ever seen it is usually up to 30 days.
30 would be the max.
30 is usually the max that we've ever seen on these surveillance loops. But the trick is you've got to put the person or company that owns the footage, you have to put them on notice that they are required to preserve it and not erase it. And that's really where getting a lawyer involved comes in, because we do this kind of thing all the time. We put businesses on notice. Hey, you have footage that showed this incident. You're required to keep it because it is evidence. If we're sending it to the company that we may be looking to file a claim against, they really have to take note of that sort of thing, because if they don't preserve it, then they can get in trouble for what's called spoliation of evidence. But it's only if you can really show that they had a legal duty to preserve that evidence. And so a lawyer sending a letter saying preserve this video to, let's say, a retailer that has surveillance, clean up on aisle 3, and there's a camera right up there. You have to let them know, on this date at approximately this time there was an incident. We think you have footage. You need to save 6 hours before and 2 hours after. And we usually ask for an extended period of time because, like Ted said, when you're dealing with premise liability cases, the law on slip and fall cases is different than the law on trip and fall cases. People are like, what's the difference between a slip and fall and a trip and fall?
Well, and it's critical. I mean, slip and fall, you're going to be basing that off of some sort of typically foreign substance that's on the ground that shouldn't be there. When I mean foreign substance, whether it's water, grease, oil, you name it, any kind of liquid or other substance that's causing the surface to be slick and not to be the way you would anticipate it, that causes your feet to come out from under you and you fall. That is something that's not supposed to be there and is not natural to the terrain. That you have to prove has been there for a certain amount of time so that the landowner knew or should have known, constructive knowledge, so that they then had a duty to rectify it. If someone spills something and 5 seconds later you walk over it, there's really nothing the landowner could have done.
That's
And that's so the law is not going to hold them liable, because that would be in essence strict liability. Whereas on the other hand, a trip and fall is typically going to be something structural in the terrain that you're dealing with. A hole, stairs that aren't the right height, concrete that's broken off.
A threshold going in between rooms.
And so in those situations, you're dealing typically with something that you can go back and photograph after the fact. You can document. There's a lot of times that building codes come into play and other standards on what you should and shouldn't have as far as changes in elevation or topography for whatever the particular situation you're dealing with is. And so your level of proof and your ability to prove your case is a lot easier in a trip and fall case. In the slip and fall case, if you don't have the video or some other evidence from a witness that saw it, it can be extremely difficult. And the law in Florida has evolved over the years to put a lot of burden on a plaintiff. Even by legislation.
It's very favorable to the businesses. And look, like Ted said before, sometimes people fake these things. They do. Very rare. I mean, we've had situations where people have come in and
we get the video.
We get the video, and we have to call them up and say, we can't do anything with this case. This isn't real. You're lucky that they're not going after you for insurance fraud.
Because in any kind
Right.
of claims process, I tell people all the time, credibility is one of the biggest things.
It's absolutely key.
And you know, and our credibility when we're dealing with folks that we deal with every day, we're not going to jeopardize that for anything.
No, absolutely not.
Because that just hurts our current and future clients if we were to do that.
That's
so, you know, you got to be upfront and honest in the whole part of the claims process, and let the facts be what they are, and let your claim fall where it's going to fall as a result of that.
Yep. That's right.
But you know, so whether it's a trip and fall, slip and fall, either one, it's important to document, report them when they happen.
Right.
You know, a lot of people don't want to, are worried about, well, I don't want to talk to them. They're gonna try to use something against me. Well, you need to document it at the scene.
Yeah.
Now, if they ask you to sign anything, that's where